Hey, what's going on? When it comes to discerning God's will for your life, a lot of times it's not just about what is God's will for my life. We got to think about what is God's will for our lives. We have to include our family, maybe our church, our community, the people around us. So today I want to talk about how we have to focus on our family as well when we're discerning God's will for our life. Because when we make any decision, it's never just us. We always have to think about how it impacts our spouses, our kids, our parents, brothers, sisters, whoever might be in your family. That discerning God's will isn't as simple as what do I want and what is God's will for my life? We have to take the rest of the people that we love into consideration as well. And so by the end of this video, I'm going to take some of those same concepts that we use to discern God's will for your life and apply it to your whole family and how it can better your whole family's lives at the same time. And I'm going to use stories from my own life, a very recent example of something that happened to me where I had to apply these very principles. So I practice what I preach. Hi, I'm Chad Torreson with Directional Faith, where I want to help you find faith with a purpose. And my goal is to help you learn to discern God's will for your life. And in this case, we'll learn how to discern God's will for your family's lives as well. Because a lot of the decisions we make impact our family as well. Maybe it's a move, a job change, or whether or not to have more kids. There are a lot of examples where decisions that we make impact everybody in our family. But it's hard because we're selfish by nature. There are a lot of times where we want to focus on our family, but it's so hard to get out of our own head. We're thinking about what we want, what God's will for our life is, what we want to accomplish. I struggled with this myself recently. I had to go through an entire discernment process, not just on what was best for me, but what was best for our whole family. My wife was given a great opportunity, and I didn't know exactly what to do or how to handle it. So I went to the same discernment patterns that I normally use for my own life and made sure to apply it to our whole family as well. So what is the opportunity? My wife was interviewing for a job at our church to be the office manager. She's been an office manager in other positions, and it's always been in the corporate world though. And there's a part of her that's always wanted to work in ministry or to work for the church. And here she was given this great opportunity. It was a difficult decision. She's been a stay-at-home mom for a while, and to go back to work, especially right now in the midst of the pandemic, there were a lot of questions that were on all of our minds. But for me personally, I had to think about how it impacted my life, my work, the things that I'm doing. Not only these videos, but the spiritual direction I'm doing, as well as the business that I run during the day, which puts the roof over our heads. If my wife got the job, it meant that I was going to have to pick up more of the responsibilities with the kids. And that was going to be difficult for me to do. I already feel like I'm juggling a lot of things, but how am I going to incorporate taking care of the kids as well? So this is something that really struck me hard because it was something that I knew was a great thing for her, but I struggled with it myself. And so I took it to God because I knew that's where I was going to find the right answer. And if you ever face a situation like that, we have to break it down to the very basic of what God's will for our life is. We've spent a lot of time talking about it in other videos, and I like to break it down to these 2 points. Jesus was asked what the 2 greatest commandments were. And he responded by saying to love God and to love others. And that's God's will for our life, first and foremost. Beyond anything and everything else that we're going to do, it begins right there. So it made me realize that in discerning this, that in order to follow God's will, I had to love others, which meant that as a husband, I had to put my wife's goals and my wife's needs right in front of my own. That I couldn't only think about what God was calling me to do. I had to think about what God might be calling her to do as well. And of course, this same idea might apply to other groups as well. Maybe you could apply it to your church, to your ministry, to your workplace, or even to your group of friends. That there are people in your life where you may have to make decisions together and discern things together. And you have to put their needs and their wants in front of your own, because that's what Jesus would do. Jesus showed us in so many ways how to lead sacrificially, like when he washed his disciples' feet. He showed over and over, time and time again, where he put their needs before his own. Jesus came and lived sacrificially, and we're supposed to follow that same thing. We're not supposed to always put our needs and our wants and our desires to the front. We need to think about others before we make decisions like that. We can't only think about what God's will for our life is. So what is the first step in discerning as a family? I think it starts as individuals. We have to spend individual time with God to kind of get our mindset straight before we enter in that conversation together. Before we take it to God as a group, as a couple, as a family, we need to make sure that we're in the right place first. And so I like to spend a little bit of time by myself praying to God and just asking him to give me some guidance and allow me to get my heart set in the right place. I'm not looking for a decision at this point. I'm really just looking to get my heart set so that I can be more open in that conversation. And why did I have to do that? Because when I was first thinking about this situation, I kept thinking about how I had to work harder and I had to take more responsibility with the kids, and I was going to have a hard time making this happen. But I needed to take that I out of the equation, because it wasn't about it wasn't about me, it was about us. And I had to reframe my mind to make sure that I was focusing on what really mattered. And so once I was able to take myself out of the equation, I realized what a great opportunity this was for my wife, and that it was going to give her a chance to use her God-given talents. And so this was obviously God calling her for this specific mission because he wanted her there. And who was I to stand in the way of God's will for her life? And don't think for a second that this situation doesn't benefit me too, because by following God's will for her life, it's going to benefit all of us. It always does. And it's going to allow me to grow in that sacrificial role that I feel called to as a husband. But before we could do anything with it, I had to take the next step, which is I needed to become indifferent to the results. No matter whether my wife got the job or not, I needed to be indifferent to God's will for her life and my life. What do I mean by indifferent? It truly means that I couldn't care about what happened. I know that seems strange. We always seem to care what God's will for our life is. But I had to trust that whether my wife got the job or not, that God's will and God's hand was in all of it, that he was going to take care of us no matter what, and that I had complete faith and trust. So if she got the job, that'd be a great thing. At the same time, if she didn't, then that means God had other plans for her, and that's great too. Indifference is a key aspect of Ignatian spirituality. To not care. It's part of Ignatius's first principle and foundation that I've talked about in other videos, that we have to be completely impartial to what happens. When we take something to God and we try to discern it, we have to truly trust and allow him to lead us whichever direction it may be. And then in step 3, we're going to discern the same way that we did as an individual. We're going to imagine the 2 different outcomes. Like for my wife, we imagined what her life would be like if she got the job and if she didn't get the job. We did a little bit of the pros and cons, but at the same time, we also just imagined what that life would be like. What would it be like if she went back to work? The good things, the bad things, how would our lives change? And what would it make us feel? Was it something that was going to bring us joy in our life? But on the flip side, we imagine, what if she didn't get the job? She's got other things going on, and she really loves being a stay-at-home mom as well. So we were completely open to that idea. And we took those 2 ideas together. She didn't even have the job yet, but we said, let's take some time to think about where would this go and how would this bring us joy? If they made her an offer for the job, would she take it? And by this point, you're probably wondering if she even got the job. Make sure you hit that like button, and I'll tell you by the end of the video. And so which one did she actually decide? It was rather difficult because really both were attractive. One part of her could love the idea of working for the church and using her skills and talents to help God. But at the same time, there was a part of her that loved staying at home with our kids. So she was on the fence. And in the end, she decided to trust God and say, hey, if they're going to make the offer, then I'm going to go ahead and take it. And the most important aspect of that is that we made that decision together. We came to that decision after a little back and forth, that we were able to talk about it, go through the different scenarios and say, yes, let's do this. Let's see what happens. Because the reason why we go through this whole process is because unity is what matters in a family. And if one person is off chasing their dreams and the other one's left behind, your family's not going to get very far. We need to make sure that we include everybody and that everybody gets to chase their dreams and live God's will for their lives, because that's what our duty is as a family. And as co-leaders of the family, our job isn't just to get ourselves across the finish line for us to find God's will for our life. It's to help each other find God's will for our life. And that's true whether you're a single mom and you have to take care of your kids, or you're taking care of your elderly parents, or maybe you're just completely on your own. Whatever the case may be, when we look at these decisions, we have to think about not just how it impacts us, but how it impacts the people around us, our family, our friends, our community, that we don't make any decision in a vacuum. Every choice that we make is going to impact other people. And that's where we find our first and primary vocation. Like for me, my primary vocation isn't as a YouTube personality, isn't as a spiritual director, or even as an IT guy during my day job. My first vocation is as a husband and a father. And if I can't get that right, none of that other stuff matters. I promise you, if you follow these methods, you're going to see amazing changes, not just in your life, but in the lives of everyone in your family and your friends and the people around you. And if you want to continue learning more about how to find God's will for your life, check out these videos over here. And in case you were wondering, she got the job. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks and God bless.